Hey everybody, in this episode we're interviewing Farhana Aboo. Farhana currently runs marketing at AEI, one of the most interesting music companies out there. Their collective of YouTube channels have transformed to global music brands, and you surely know some of them, like UKF and TheSoundYouNeed. AEI would be the ninth largest channel in the world if all of their brands merged into one. But before working at AEI, Farhana also worked for MTV and then for Perform, which is a huge sports content provider. Basically, she's been doing digital marketing, public relations, and brand strategy for the past decade, and always for forward-thinking companies. It was such a treat to have her on the program. Here is the interview. Um,
So,
so yeah, great to have you on the program. We want to always start by explaining a little bit who is the person that is speaking to the audience. So I want to go early and start very early in your life.
yeah.
You've been doing before music. You did a lot of digital marketing, content marketing, brand marketing. Were your parents and family from this? Is this something you were brought up into?
Um, Not marketing or in anything like that at all in my family. It's just me. However, music is something that's kind of, I would say, in the blood. Um, the place where my people are from in India, you know how people have like occupations, like these people are tailors and these people are blacksmiths. My people are known as like entertainers and musicians. So my mom's dad was a classical music teacher, Indian music, and growing up, so I was brought up in Kenya. My parents had a band, so basically, music is something that's kind of always been there. And as a kid, I was obsessed, so I spent most of my hard-earned part-time job money on buying CDs and albums like on a weekly basis. So I don't actually have any musical talent, but I just love music. But no one around me worked in music, so I didn't even know that was a possibility.
It's insane the amount of money I must have spent buying records and CDs.
Yeah,
And when you see kids today, they're just listening to all the music they can without having to buy it. I
just skip
remember,
through it all as well.
yeah, and I remember when you had to, like, when you bought the CD, you would listen to it on loop 25 times because you actually put money into buying the object.
And
Um,
also because you had to use a Discman, so you could only carry a number of CDs out with you, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure. And so, what was the actual first experience you had with content, with marketing, with music professionally? Was it the first internship at college, which is something before?
Yeah, so I literally kind of was like, I want to go to uni, but no idea. So I kind of picked advertising and marketing because it had a bit of creativity and a bit of business in there. And as part of the course, we had to do a 6 week placement. I didn't really have any interest. Well, like, while I was there, I learned quickly that ad agencies weren't quite where I would fit in or I had an interest in. We had someone from the year above come speak to our year to prepare us for the work placement when we were applying, and she happened to have done hers at a online PR agency that specialized in music, video games, movies, all things. I was like, oh my god, sounds like fun. It was called Way to Blue. So I was like, that's where I want to go. So I did my applied there, nowhere else, got the placement. And when I got there, it was almost like, I mean, obviously the work I did was very like intern, like, sending out CDs and writing things and, like very basic thing. However, it was like a light bulb moment. Like up until that point, I had not realized that I could have a career in music or even film industry. I just thought I'd have to do marketing for, I don't know, it was either advertising agency or big corporate company. Like the fact to think that I could work in music hadn't even occurred to me unless I was like an A&R or an artist. So yeah, so that was the first time I actually thought I can do this. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, in our interview with Bob, he mentions the first shot that he got at Yahoo, and the idea is from the outside, you think, well, those people must be extraordinary with superpowers, super networks. They must know everybody. I don't know anybody. I'm a normal person. And then when you
Yeah,
arrive and somebody gives you a shot, some people can't, but if you can survive and like sink or swim, if you can swim, and then you actually realize, oh shit, I'm part of these people now, and now
Yeah,
everybody on the outside is thinking that I am special, and it's just about getting that first shot and getting that first mentorship a lot of the time.
yeah,
So do you remember, I think you arrived at MTV at 2005. Um,
yeah,
do you remember what digital was in 2005? I think people might not remember, but I think YouTube is 2007. Facebook
yeah.
pages is probably 2007. So what is digital in 2005 at this
Well,
point?
I remember. So when I went to uni, so that was before MTV. Digital then was we got. I mean, at that point we didn't even think about piracy, but LimeWire file sharing. I was like, oh my god, I have access to all these movies and music, and I don't have to pay for it. I thought that was amazing. And then obviously there was MySpace. So obviously not work related, but everybody had MySpace, and it was all about making your MySpace look very customized and pretty and things like that. And that's most of what I can remember about digital back in that time.
Yeah,
Um,
I think in 2005, 2007, you couldn't like send a file through Dropbox or Google Drive or any of those things. You had Betacams and a lot of physical objects being UPSed around the world. I
yeah,
remember having to like send CDs and then wait that the person would receive my package to then ask if he listened to the CD or she listened to the CDs, which
yeah,
feels really ridiculous today.
yeah, yeah. It was an interesting time. Like I can't even imagine it. Like people were using Blackberries with the little tiny screen, and yeah.
What's the big learning from working at Viacom? I don't even know how many thousands of employees Viacom must have, but it's such a huge company in media and content.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was actually my first proper job, like not even just in music, but just in general. Um, so for me, it started off with an internship, so for a 6 months internship. So I was just so excited because back in the day, MTV is where you kind of aspired to go to, and I had an internship there. But it was such a massive company, and it was very corporate. Actually didn't realize that until after I left. But I was fortunate enough to work in the part of MTV that was operated like its own small business. It was known as the MTV Emerging Markets, and the role of that department was to launch localized MTV channels. So they launched MTV Poland, MTV Arabia, MTV Israel, MTV Ukraine. So it was part of MTV, but it operated in like its own little business. So I didn't feel the big corporateness of it too much until they started paying more attention to it when we launched MTV Arabia. So obviously it was becoming a big deal. Uh, but it was just like how streamlined it is and how much more accessibility you have and to everything that Viacom does. So, you got Paramount and your Nickelodeon, and I didn't realize that MTV was just one of those things. Um, Also, just working at somewhere called MTV, like if I had to, like, I don't know, because I started as an intern, I had to like book like the Christmas party, for example, and they're like, right, this is your budget, go and organize it. So I'll call a venue and they'll be like, oh, it's X amount. And I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, that's kind of, it was out of the budget because I was given a certain budget. And they're like, oh, no, 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 but because we really want to work with you. And that made me think, oh my God, what else can I get just by saying I work at MTV? So that was an eye opener. So just having the access to that big company, the big name, kind of opened a lot of doors, like personally and doing the job as well.
yeah, that's a fair and people don't realize that, but yeah, when you work at a big company, you must have had you were in a small team within a big team, so you get the startup experience in the big
Yeah.
conglomerate. But actually, the name of the company helps. My first
Yes.
internship was Universal Music.
Yeah.
I really thought of myself as a 17-year-old guy who liked music, and all of a sudden you're making calls and you're like, "Hi, this is David from Universal," and people are like, "Well, hello, David from Universal," and
Yeah.
then yeah, that helps a lot, and that is something that you cannot unforget when you go maybe after work as an indie, and you become like,
Yes.
"Hey, I'm David from me," and then you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, actually, people were not answering because of the first name, but maybe they were also answering because of the last name."
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, of course. That's why working at a big company helps a lot. Um, you left MTV, and so we were talking about it preparing the interview between MTV and Perform, which is the big group, like the big sports media content group, you had a couple of years we actually had to do jobs to pay the bills, and that
Yeah.
was very shy way asking you, like, could we actually mention that? I think there's a lot of learnings. A lot of people in their career go through a moment in between jobs where they have to do something. We're not all born with $1 million in our accounts,
Yeah.
and so most of us have had to do jobs. I've had to do things I didn't really want to do as well. And so I asked you, like, do you want to share maybe some of the learnings? There's obviously learnings in like doing something you don't like that makes you realize how much you like what you did before. Um, yeah, how was that period? How was it? Was it tough? Did you look forward? How does grit? How much is grit important in your life by not letting go? Yeah, can you tell us a bit?
Yeah, so I left MTV, as I was telling you, because they were restructuring, and my role was so I started as an intern, but they kind of kept me on and created a role for me because I worked with some amazing people there. When they were making all these redundancies, my role was a contract role, and which was supposed to be made permanent. So essentially, I kind of lost my job. But at that time, I didn't really. I was like, I've worked at MTV. I'm going to get a job easy. So I was pretty relaxed about it, and then applying for places and not even getting any responses. And I was like, what's going on? It says MTV on it. um, my friend of mine worked at House of Fraser, which is a retail department store, and he was like, why don't you just come work here for a bit while you're job hunting? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. At least I'll get some money coming in. I ended up there for like a couple of years. So in the first year, I was like, okay, something's gonna come up, and then nothing did. And luckily, I have this attitude where I'm like, if something's not working, instead of continuing to do the same thing, like look at why it's not working or what are the other steps that I could take to get out of there. And it was like, although I had fun, like the people I worked with were fun, and I like talking to people, but once you've studied, you've spent that much money, getting a degree, you've worked somewhere where you were like, oh my god, I work at MTV, to then be like, I'm folding t-shirts and people asking me stupid questions about whatever they want to buy. It was quite demoralizing, and you would feel like quite, I guess, depressed because you're like, where's my life going? I can't do anything. But instead of kind of letting that get you down, I kind of was like, right, what can I do to stand out from everyone else, and how can I approach this in a different way to get out of here? So I did a few courses. I did like Photoshop and Dreamweaver, but then I also decided to invest a bit more. So I got a loan out and I signed up for the CIM, which is the Chartered Institute of Marketing diploma. I started doing that. That was really difficult to study and work full time. But I hadn't even finished it, and I got an email or someone contacting me to like come for this job. And as I was telling you earlier, I didn't even realize it was a job interview that I was going for, and it was Perform, and my CV was on Monster.com, and I had put it on there that I'm doing the CIM. And when I went for the interview, they did actually tell me that that was what stood out. So that immediately, that loan and that hard work was kind of like, right, it's actually working. Um, so yeah, what I learned from that was never just kind of keep doing the same thing if for a long period of time. If it's not working, you need to change things up. Also, it all depends on your attitude. If you feel defeated and you let that keep you down, then you're not going to get out of it. I recently had someone who was a friend of mine, and he wants to work in music, and it's not working out. But he's only just finished uni, and he was like, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I was like, you've been in it for like 2 months. It's just I had this 2 years where I was like stuck somewhere where if you have a defeatist attitude, then that's what you're gonna get. So I think it's always about looking at things from a different angle and just kind of seeing what you can do to help motivate you or just get out of there. So although Perform wasn't music, it was working in marketing. It was working on something that I've spent time and money in building up my skills. So yeah, that's the only thing I guess I can learn from there. Just
There's I mean there yeah there is the you double down. You spend a year trying to find something, it doesn't work, and you actually take a loan to like go study more and like
Yeah,
add more risk. Um,
yeah,
and actually that pays off in a very counterintuitive way. Like you keep applying, and then the people just reach out to you
very
spontaneously. Yeah, that's amazing. Um, so yeah, most people who work in music might not know what Perform is, and Perform is actually quite a large company. I think I looked, has 3,000 employees. Could you want to explain very quickly what Perform does?
Yeah, so I mean, when I hadn't even heard of Perform until they contacted me, but what I learned is like it's a massive company focused on like sports media, and so they started off as a small company and then grew really quickly. So when I was there, it was like hundreds of people. So they had two locations at the time, and they basically have. It was kind of similar to what we were doing with MTV, with having localized MTV channels. This has a streaming channel for like every imaginable sport. I mean, they had a channel for archery. Who subscribes to an archery channel on a monthly basis?
Archery is the oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
darts, tennis, football, basketball, handball, rugby, like anything you can think of that is a sport. They had a channel for that. They operated in two ways at the time. It was quite a long time, well, over 7 years ago when I left there. They had channels that were fully owned by them, but then they also had like they worked as an almost like an agency for certain channels like Tennis TV. But I think Tennis TV has gone back to ATP now, and they the channels work on a subscription basis, so they live stream sporting events. So tennis was like a big one. Both the WTA and the ATP. People subscribe to the channel on a monthly basis, or they used to have like passes for specific matches or whatever it is. But yeah, they were like a content provider. I'm pretty sure they've evolved into a lot more that I don't know about because I left 7 years ago. And although tennis or sports was not something that I was passionate about, I learned so much from that job. I think that is the job where I have to say, prior to that, I hated data and analytics and things like that because I never had to deal with it. And then when I came to perform, the 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 amount of data they have and how they use it and how creative you can be with data was something that was a massive learning experience for me. And that kind of, I was like, oh, okay, maybe data is not so bad. And now we're like geeking out over like, give me more data. so
Would you say that's the biggest learning between Perform and MTV, or Perform and AEI, or any type of music company you must hear of like the how to's and the best practice is a laser focus on actual data and facts? Is that the number
yeah,
one change, like the number one difference?
I think with MTV, because of the time that I was there, it was so, I guess digital was only just kind of coming about, and I had nothing to do with that part of the business. Um, that I kind of tried to think back. Although I learned lots from MTV, I can't focus on a tangible thing that I could take away from there other than seeing how the business works or like the music industry from their perspective works. But when it came to perform, it was more like marketing and being strategic and things like that. And I think that really helped when I got the job at AEI to then take those skills and apply them to obviously at AEI working with YouTube channels and the amount of data that we get, and just being kind of more streamlined and strategic and using data to inform what we're doing. I think the skills that I gained at Perform definitely have been invaluable. And I think a lot of bigger companies, I guess it depends on what department. Work has been fairly small, so I've been able to be a bit more hands-on with things and I can see what's happening. Whereas I don't know if other media or music companies do it the same way, or you have a specific department that does that and then everyone else hasn't got a clue. Whereas with these two places, I did actually get to do it.
Um, the I think it's very hard for a standard music company to imagine how you guys work at AEI, just because it's
Yeah,
such a specific type of company. Um, the best way for me to summarize it as a like a normal music guy is, all those big YouTube channels where there is a company that helps them organize their strategies, their branding, their monetization, and their overall growth, like the actual corporate strategy almost.
yeah,
And so that company is AEI. That's like the best way for me to summarize it.
pretty
How do
good.
you guys? Yeah, not so bad. I actually wrote it down again, so I wouldn't fuck up. How do you guys pitch yourselves? How do you guys describe yourself?
Well, it's actually been like a ongoing thing where we've kind of, because of the complicated nature of the business, we've had trouble ourselves trying to explain what it is that we do. More recently, we've kind of distilled it down to the core thing that describes AEI is basically we bring like-minded people together. So, and allowing people to have a lifetime career in music. And essentially, yes, what you said is correct. It's not just YouTube channels though. It's young entrepreneurs who have a passion for music, have similar values to us, and we basically help develop their business from a passion project into something they can have like a long-term business with. So what you were saying, so for people who don't know what we do, AI kind of operates on like three different levels. So you've got your music, you've got your content, and then you've got your live. So the music side of things, we do everything from like distribution, licensing, sync, publishing. Um, we work mostly work across the YouTube channels that we own or manage, and we work with their artists that they're supporting. All of those labels, all of those brands also have labels that they release artists' music on, and we also work with independent artists that are not associated with any of those labels. And then on the live side, we started off doing events based around the brand, so UKF events, the Sound You Need events, and then a few years ago we kind of got into festivals. So we launched El Dorado Festival 4 years ago. We partnered with a brand called Cirque du Soleil. These young guys who were doing events across the country in the UK, like a university-led kind of events, all sold and said like, why don't we launch a festival together? So we launched 4 years ago a small boutique festival called El Dorado. Um, it's like in a really nice, picturesque Herefordshire, lots of fun. And then we have an investment in Let It Roll, the biggest drum and bass festival in the world. And we also do Detonate Festival, which is up north in the UK as well. So that's not just to do with like music and YouTube channels. We kind of work with events and promoters and things like that. So, which is why we said we bring like-minded people together who have a passion for music. So, it could be music, it could be running a YouTube channel or starting a record label or running events. So anything to do with that, we kind of get our hands in there.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely unique in the industry. One of your directors, I think, started the business was 16 or 17, and like it's a very very specific type of company and operated by people who understand the new paradigm, the new
Yeah,
digital landscape, or I don't know how you would say it, but one of the things that surprised me is the ability that you guys have to scale brands, to scale the revenues alley or the exposure of a brand, and so to start from a YouTube channel, to create a community around that channel,
yeah,
to have a audio identity, a genre associated to the channel, and to actually be able to leverage that and make a festival sounds very easy to say. It must be extremely hard to actually build, because the brand is not the artist. The brand is not a media, like an old school media, but it is definitely a new media.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how has technology impacted the way you work? Like the since MTV to the like the performance sports and today AI. What is the like? How do you guys actually work every day that you think like that that just didn't exist 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Already the concept of YouTube channels didn't exist 7 or 8 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
How does that materialize on a day-to-day level for you guys?
Well, most of the first of all, the brand owners that we work with are, some of them are in the UK, but the others are like all over. So just, the internet itself, like, it has helped discover talent across the world and be able to still work with them. But like internally, we have team members who work remotely, and that is all due to like tools like Slack. You heard of Slack? It's like instant messaging. We have Asana just to, because we're doing so many projects that to be able to track everything. Um, that's definitely helped as well. Um, I think, yeah, I don't really know how we do everything. We're quite a small team. I think there's about 40 of us in total now. We've grown considerably. All the brand owners, there's two or three are in the office. The rest of them are remote. Um, but yeah, I think technology in terms of just accessibility, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can still, I mean, just using Google for everything, Google Drive, Google Docs. You don't have to send files or anything like that. That has really helped as well. Obviously, music through SoundCloud or you know Dropbox files. I mean, if people send downloads, you're like, what is this for? Send me a link, send me a YouTube link, or send me a SoundCloud link. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. I think I
Yeah,
kind of
it
went
does,
away
and
from.
I was thinking when you said that, it's also, I think, the what you consider a senior person at a company called AEI, when like some of the founders are 26 or 27, and some of the
Yeah,
owners of the channels must be like the same type of age. The
yeah,
average age, it just like it's so much easier to think about new things when you're in an entire environment where people are basically new, and you have a few very experienced people to kind of coach those young brains.
yeah,
But yeah, the young minds and the young spirits, they don't actually see this as change. They just see
yeah.
this as that's just the way it is today.
Well, I think one of the things that you might have asked me, which don't know if you'll bring it up later, but how we adapt to changing technology, and that is exactly it. Like Luke, like I said, left school. Well, no, he started his channel at 16 only to share music with his friends, and then that didn't realize how it would snowball because of technology and the ability to share things like that. He actually quit uni. He didn't finish to kind of take that more seriously. And he's like, he's one of the owners of the company, but because we don't see that age difference because of what he brings to the table, you can have a conversation with him and not think, oh, you're only this age. That is also amazing. Like the ideas that he comes up with. I think the other owner for NCS, No Copyright Sounds, which has like over 22 million subscribers. Billy, he was a video gamer and he just wanted to upload his YouTube videos with music on it, but kept getting taken down. He was like, right, I'm just going to sign the music myself. Then I don't have the issue of my videos getting taken down. Again, he was fulfilling a need of other people like him, and that snowballed and discovered likes of Alan Walker. In fact, recently we have a track that we distributed for NCS. We literally just put it out. It's called a track called Cradles by Suburban. I mean, it got good support on Spotify and things like that. Then a few weeks ago, um, someone did a little video on TikTok, like the Justice, no, Rocket League. Oh, I can't remember what it's called. A dance from that with the track, and it went viral. And then someone else from Russia did some weird TikTok video. It's gone viral, and it's been shared. About how many videos are being made? About over 800,000 videos are being made of it on there, and the streams are literally mad. But it's all this new technology that sometimes even we're like, oh, right, we need to learn more about it. So it's the working with younger people, the artists are younger, and just kind of taking everyone's ideas on board, whether they're an intern or the CEO, it doesn't really matter. It's about the ideas and just I think everyone is really excited about trying new things and not scared of trying new things, which I think a lot of big companies have an issue with.
I was gonna ask you, the I think one of the things that that probably marks the difference between AEI and a lot of other companies is that the methods that you applied 2 or 3 years ago cannot be reapplied. It's not like release a single if you're a major, where it is different, but it is kind of the same. The YouTube algorithm has changed a lot in the past 2 years. You guys must be tweaking and looking for patterns a lot. Today you're talking about this TikTok video that is booming. In 2 years, it will not be that same type of thing. 2 years ago, even 5 months ago, it was not that as well. Do you guys have a method for that? Actually, that's a curiosity question. Is there a moment during the week where people are like describing the new techniques, the new patterns, the new campaigns that kind of like, oh, that's new. We should probably do that as well.
I wish we were that organized. It's more like the curiosity and the passion that everyone has for music and technology. So we're constantly, everyone is subscribed to or looking at different things. So like when it comes to marketing, I'll be like reading different publications or watching these things. People who are releasing music will be looking, like the guys who upload the YouTube videos are constantly looking at the algorithm. So the one thing that we do really well is actually share information internally, whether it's not in a organized pattern, but we also go out for drinks a lot. So we're always talking about things like, as well as outside of work, where, oh, did you see this or that? Oh, I was on Instagram the other day and I saw this. What do you think about doing that? Like, for example, pre-saves and things like that. You're like, well, why can't we do that? So we were like, our developers are like, well, let's try and build it. So it's everyone's hunger for finding new things and sharing it and then experimenting. I think those are the things that really drive everyone that work within the team, and that's kind of how we keep evolving each time, having people who work in each department that are really passionate and keep an eye on everything and then sharing that information with each other.
And then having a pub meeting.
And the pub meetings are the best. We have the best ideas there.
Of course, yeah. After 7 p.m., that's usually when the ideas get interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't want to grab too much of your time, and I realize it's almost been 45, so I want to kind of segue into the conclusion. At the beginning of the interview, I mentioned you were the first woman on the program, and I am ashamed of that.
You've only done 4 episodes, so it's fine. We'll let you.
Yeah. But it's. I think it was an important thing to start the series like this. I mean, to not start the series like this. I wanted to ask you a bit about work-life balance. We were jokingly talking at the beginning of the interview that you were working remotely today. I was working remotely yesterday. And so actually, I also noticed you do a lot of sports, and that seems to be a central in your life. Can you talk a bit about work-life balance? I don't know if there is actually something specific about women work-life balance. There's obviously maybe more kids sometimes situation. How have you been able to find like a center in this professional life that is a bit chaotic, always a bit erratic?
I think partly with just the way I am, I kind of always, as much as I love my job or enjoy what I'm doing, I kind of have always had like a stop. Like it's 6 o'clock, I've done work, I'm gonna go and do whatever I want to do. I want to have socialize with my friends, or see family, or just sit down and watch Netflix. Whatever it is, I've always had that anyway. But I'm also really fortunate in the sense that AEI is also very encouraging about having a work-life balance. We do I think almost half, if not half, of people in the office do meditation. So we do transcendental meditation that the company subsidized the courses for. We do yoga in the office. But I mean, I also got really into, I'm not a sporty person, I wouldn't say, but I like doing martial arts. So I did jiu-jitsu at university, kickboxing, and more recently I've been getting more into boxing. And because I really enjoy it, I make time for it. And I actually did a white collar fight a few weeks ago, and I won, so that was great. But it was charity, yeah. So it's just doing things that I enjoy that are not work related, and making sure that, because you don't want to get burnt out, that you lose your passion. The one thing I always wanted, even when I was at university, to do a job that I enjoyed, because you spend so much of your time at work. But so my motto in life is just to have fun. So if anything is not fun and you're feeling burnt out, you're not going to want to do it. So it's just to make sure that you're doing enough to keep, yeah, I guess, yeah, keep it balanced. So doing things that are fun for you that are outside of work is important.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, just think.
you
I
can
was just
actually, no, I was going to say you can actually lose your passion by burning out along the way.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. I was just saying things like just small things like making sure you don't have notifications on your phone for Slack or email or things like that after you finish work, unless there's obviously you're working on something on a deadline, then you can check in. But other than that, making sure that when you finish work, you finish work.
Last couple of questions. They're always hard. What the first one is easier. What would you say a 19-year-old to a 19-year-old person starting in the media tech content industry?
Yeah. I actually, because I speak at so many conferences and we also try and go and speak to kids in school or university because I feel really passionate about helping the younger people come through. And because I had no idea that I could work in music until I did work experience, or no one told me that there was these options. So I would just say that explore as many options as possible. You don't have to feel bad if you don't know what you want to do then. Just get to meet as many people as you want, get curious about things that you're passionate about because like who knew that just playing video games would make you a huge success like Billy from NCS. So just because you're passionate in something and your mom said with all these CDs that you're buying and all the movies that you're watching, what are you going to do with that in real life? But in reality, is you can do a lot. So I think just be curious, and because now there's so much information and access, go to networking events, do research, just explore what you're passionate about, and see how you can make that something you can do, like as your career.
Yeah, you can actually make a career of any passion if you're the most passionate about it. Uh,
Absolutely. Our two founders, Dell and James, they basically started AEI because they didn't want to get a proper job. So, and here they are, like 20 years later, and they're still doing this.
what would you, so last question, and that one usually gets a big hum. What would you tell you if you met the 19-year-old you today? What would be the best advice that you wish you had gotten when you were 19?
Uh, Trying to think. That is a difficult one because I think all the experience that you go through kind of make you the person that you are. So you don't really want to change too much. I think I would probably just say to be a bit more confident in my abilities and realize that a little bit sooner than, the journey is taken. But again, it's all about the learning, isn't it? And then you get where you are because of what you went through.
If you
But
if you got the ultimate tip when you were 19, maybe you wouldn't have gone through the grind, and so maybe you would have had less grit and
work
maybe the
experience,
yeah.
do work experience from an earlier age rather than waiting till I was at university and much later.
Yeah. Well, cool. It's been 49 minutes. I wanted to let you go a few minutes ago. Thanks for your time. Thanks for
No, thank
doing
you.
this, and let's see you soon.
Yeah, see you in London.
Bye
See you
bye.
later. Bye.